Hey guys, my name's Alex. Today I'm going to show you how to paint one of my favorite Star Wars characters using some underrated paints, in my opinion. Real quick before we go out and prime the model, we're going to do some basing on this guy. So this is a really simple technique and you get a pretty good effect. So as you can see, the base is already textured a bit, so we're going to play into that. So we're just going to put a bit of super glue on here. We have a little pin right here. Just going to spread it around. Just kind of make like a natural like shape almost. Get some sand, sprinkle it on, tap it off, sprinkle some baking soda on there, and that'll dry the super glue out. So you kind of just tap it off, but you want to let it sit there just for a bit. Maybe do one more little pile there. This is just like a little rubble or debris pile. Alright, now we're going to brush it off. And there we go. Priming this guy is going to be real simple. Just going to be using a brown matte, or this is actually satin rattle can. Just going to hit this guy. You really want to make sure that you hit the undersides, like where the shadows are going to be. Alright, that looks about good. And I really like Krylon because it goes on really thin, so then you don't have to worry about the paint gunking up the nice fine details. Alright, so to start the painting process, we first need to base coat our mini in, or our Bossk in this scenario, in Rhinox hide, okay? After that, we're going to be dry brushing, which is very, very easy, and we're going to be building up the tones. So then we're going to go with the heavy dry brush of Xandri Dust, then a Shabbity Bone, Screaming Skull, and then lastly, Ulthuan Gray. So the last color, Ulthuan Gray, you could replace it with whatever really you want, just like a really light gray or a white even maybe. It's really up to you. And you don't have to use these paints specifically. You can just use any ones that are very similar, or you could even mix your own paints. Whatever, it's really up to you. So we're gonna start by base coating with it. I have this kind of crappy brush, but it's great for base coating because its belly is pretty big, or the ferrule I believe is what the actual term is called. So I'm just gonna get this open and put some of this onto my wet palette. So this is probably like the longest step in the painting process. And what you want to do is try to get this into all of the crevices, really. That's like the main deal here. So once you have your base coating done, oh yeah, don't base coat the base in this, just the model. But once you have this done, then we'll move on to the next step. I'd also like to say, remember to always use 2 thin coats. If you need to thin your paints, that's great. In this case, I didn't really need to because I'm using a wet palette. So that kind of naturally thins the paints. But yeah, if you need to, add a little bit of water, paint thinner, whatever you want to use. Yeah, but make sure it's thin coats. Alright, so our base coat is done. That was very easy. It only took about 5 minutes maybe. So next, we move on to the Xandri Dust. So we're gonna take this, shake it real good, and we're going to dry brush this on. So the goal of this is it's not a like edge highlight dry brush, it's more of an over brush, I would say, because you want still like a little bit of the dark brown to be like your shadow color. So you just take this, get it on, oh yeah, so this is the brush I'm using. Kind of frayed, but it's meant to be a dry brush. The bristles are kind of softer. So yeah, I just got that on the tip. Then we take this, we rub it off onto our paper towel, rubbing most of it off, just working it into the bristles. So you can see that there's not very much, you can't really see that there's any paint there, but if I go like this, you can barely see there's any paint, right? So now we just take this, we start going like this. And this will pick out all of like the scales, as you can see, and it starts bringing some definition to these different areas. Like like you can see the texture of the cloth comes out, and these belts. Yeah, so just continue around the model doing that, and I'll be back once I have this step done. All right, and here's our model now that we have the Xandri dust dry brush done. As you can see, a lot of the detail is brought out now. You can see like all of the scales individually. Yeah. So next we're gonna go on to a shabby bone, and we're gonna pretty much do the same thing. But this time we're going to focus more, just a slightly more on some of the raised areas. So like maybe in here, it's a little bit darker. I might hit, oh, yeah, maybe inside of here, it's a little bit darker, right? Because if you like are looking at the model like this, the natural shadows right in there. Same thing with like maybe under here. So we're just gonna hit those areas maybe a little bit lighter, as opposed to like maybe the knee, the head, the arm, you know? So yeah, now we're gonna just build up that highlight. All right, so I've completed that next dry brush of the shabby bone. As you can see, the contrast is boosted even more. The highlights are very bright, and the recesses are very dark. So we're gonna continue with this dry brush. We're gonna go Screaming Skull next. And I also forgot to mention that both of these dry brushes, they only took about 5 minutes each, maybe less. They're very, very quick to do. Also, don't wash your dry brush in between colors, because one, it'll help kind of create a nice gradient if there's still a little bit of the pigment that you used before. And also, you don't want to be using a wet brush when you're doing this. That will make the colors look really like muddy, and yeah, it just won't look good at all. I mean, of course you could try it, but I wouldn't. So next we're gonna go with the Screaming Skull, and I'll be back once I get that process done. All right, so we finished our Screaming Skull dry brush, just a little more contrast. So to finish this process off, we're gonna do the Hawthorne Gray. All right, so with that final step complete, we are done with our prep work. So now we will go on to adding some color to the model, because I'm sure you're wondering, well, why are we putting all this brown on Bossk when there really is no brown on him at all? So what we've been doing is building up like the undercoat almost, because we're going to be using the contrast paints. It's a bit of an underrated model, I think, because people just use it with the like standard spray paint that it's meant to be used with, but I think this is the true way that it should be used, or at least this is the best way, or the way to get the best result, I should say. So for this we will be using Iadin Yellow, I believe it's called. Yeah, Iadin Yellow, for all of the yellow parts. So first we're going to be using the Iadin Yellow. Give it a good shake, because sometimes you can see the pigment might settle on the bottom, so you want to give it a really good shake. All right, that's probably good. So I'm going to grab this brush. So as you can see, the brush is a little bit long, like the body, the ferrule, whatever is no, the ferrule is this part, I believe. But the body is a bit longer, which is good for the contrast paints, because you want the body to soak up a lot of that paint. And the tip, it's not exactly pointed, but that's all right, because we want to get a wide stroke like that, right? So then it can spread. And I do want this smaller brush, so then I have a bit more control. But yeah, so now I'm gonna go ahead and put this on here. All right. And this model is really nice because it has all of these areas kind of blocked off. with these like little ropes, or like the loops, whatever you want to call them. So then you can take it one section at a time. All right, all of that yellow has been applied. So now we will do the green, and we're gonna do the green next because, as you can see, none of the green touches the yellow. So that'll give us time to apply all the green, and by the time that's done, all of the yellow should be done drying. See, so like you can see right here, the green will go there, but it's blocked by this. Same as with the arms by this, and the head by that part. So, same thing, we're gonna just shake it up really good. There's a little bit of pigment, but that's all right. I mean, it's pretty well mixed. And earlier there was a lot more pigment on there, like completely on the bottom, but I think it'll be all right. So pop that open, load up our brush, and you don't want a whole ton of paint on your brush. I'd say about that much is good. And then we just paint it on there. So the trick with contrast paint is you don't want to work with it for too long. I'd say once you have it on an area, you have about maybe like 20 seconds of working time. So yeah, that's probably a good rule of thumb. I'd say 20 seconds. So once you apply it onto any given area, after that 20 seconds is up, don't touch that area again. Otherwise, it will start removing the paint, and then it's already kind of halfway dry, and it's not a good, a fun sight. See, also right here, you can see it's kind of gunked up right there, kind of clogged. So you can kind of just move it aside, soak it up on your brush a little bit, and then just reapply it to a different area. All right, and that's those feet there. As you can tell, the dry brushing has really helped because it brings out a natural highlight. Yep, so I'm gonna complete the rest of the green and be back when that is done. With all the green done, we're gonna move on to our white. So for the white, we're gonna do something a little bit different. We're going to take the Ultramarine Gray again, shake it up, put it on our palette. For this, you could use whatever brush really, maybe one with a little bit of a finer tip. I think this is a number 2 brush. And you want this finer tip because you're gonna be kind of reaching into some finer detail areas. So like you see, actually here, I'll just do it. So what we're gonna do is cover up all of the white areas, but you don't need to cover up the entirety of the area. So like under here, I'm not gonna cover that up. I'm just gonna go down to where it's visible, because we do want those natural shadows still. So I'm gonna do that, right? And it's actually okay if some of the stuff is still like showing through, some of that brown from the undercoat. And what we're gonna do is just go over all of those like white strips, right? And then for here, we're gonna kind of do like an edge highlight, like a more refined or defined edge highlight, right? And then in here, we're just gonna hit these areas, not go too much into the crevices, but just hit the areas, like the big patches. And we're gonna do the same thing on the back. Just go like this with the edge of your brush to hit all of these lines here. That's like the fastest way to do any kind of edge highlighting, is just running the edge of the brush like that along there. So then you're not hitting those recesses, and you're getting those highlights. Then we're gonna hit this back area as well, just like this. But I'm gonna go and add a little bit more color in there. But yeah, that's about it. And then once I complete this step, I'll be back with the second part of the white. So now I've completed the white blocking, I guess you could say. So as you can tell, I've left in some of the recess, like the brown from the base coat. And that will give it some natural like depth. And but we're gonna take it a step further. You could very well just leave it at what it is, but I'm gonna take it just a step further. So now I'm gonna take the contrast technical medium and Nuln Oil, and I'm gonna make a 50-50 mix of the two. And what this is gonna do is just shade it down a little bit, just tone it down, because I don't want a pure white. Like, as you can, well, it's already a bit shaded, but this will mute the white that we just put on top though. All right, so we'll mix it on our wet palette, right? Might be a little hard to see. There we go, mix it just a bit. Now, of course, you can add more Nuln Oil if you want, or technical medium, whichever. Yep, and then we just apply it very nicely onto the white. Okay, once that step is completed, what you'll want to do is take take your contrast black Templar and grab a fine detail brush. Oh, let's see. Yep, just a fine detail brush. You might want a nice tip for this though. And then we're gonna drop it into the areas that need black. Okay, so we're gonna start with the like little finer bits. So like, as you can see inside of here, I'm gonna drop that in there. And also this medium that we mixed, that will kind of help it go into those recesses right there, especially if it's still wet. So you might want to do this stage while it is still wet. And like the back of the neck right here, yeah, it'll help it flow into those little cracks there because of the surface tension. I mean, you don't need to do those spots, but I'm just going to. All right, so now that we have our black Templar out as well, we are going to cover up all of the parts that need black, such as this part here, this here on both sides, and I believe these leg bits as well. Oh, and the gun. So I will be back once that is complete. Black is done. I will move on to the orange, gray, and brown. So for the brown, I will use snakebite leather, and I will do that onto the belt. For the orange, I will use Griffon orange, and that will be applied to the coil around his neck, and that goes around his back. And what was the other color? Oh, the gray. The gray will be siliconum gray. It's a little bit. There we go. The siliconum gray, and that'll be applied to the some of the cables or cords that are on like his chest right there. Those two that go out to the side, and the one that's under there. So once I'll do that, I will be back. With all those colors done, now we will move on to the finishing touches. We're almost done here, just a few more steps. It shouldn't take that long, but it's just a little bit tedious to do. So we have to do the nails, or like the toenails, or the claws, I guess you could call them, and the finger ones as well, and the teeth, and the eyeball. Other than that, pretty much done. Oh, also, instead of using snakebite leather for the leather, I did wildwood, just because it's a bit of a darker brown. So for the claws and the teeth, what we'll do is break out our wet palette, grab your Shabby Bone. These are our fine detail brush. And just pick out the various areas that need this. So that's going to be areas like the claws, and don't worry about covering it up completely. Just get a good sense of like defining that color on there. The nails, the foot claws, and the teeth. So the teeth are going to be a little more tedious, but just take your time. Honestly, you don't have to do this, but I'm gonna do it just because I like to pick out these details. As you can see, I've completed all of the bone color that I need to do on there for the claws and teeth. It makes those areas just pop out a little more. So now this next step is optional, but I like to do it. Again, it just gives it some more definition. So you can either take Agrex Earthshade or Contrast Skeleton Horde and use it as a wash on those areas just to give it a little more definition. I'm going to use the Agrex in this case. Grab some on your brush. Oh, just like that. And just put it on there. Try to work it into the areas where the nail is coming out of. This will make it look just a bit more like realistic. As you can see, that's about what I'm going for. This step's not hard to do at all. It takes literally seconds to do. And same thing with the bone. It actually didn't take me long at all to do that stuff. But it does help define the miniature just a little bit more. Now that that's done, we're going to go into the final step before we do the basing, and we're going to dot the eye. So as you can see, the eyeball, it's a little bit dull right now. So I want to bring that up just a tiny bit. So I'm going to use this Troll Slayer Orange and just almost do like a highlight of it. Very easy to do this as well. I mean, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to if you're not comfortable with it. But you kind of just very lightly put some on there. Like that. There you go, that's already looking better. Now it's a little bit brighter. And then we use the black. You can use whatever black you want. Use an Abaddon black in this for this guy. I would not use the contrast paint though, for sure, because that is just too runny. So then we want just a bit of paint here, maybe thin it down just a bit more, because we want it a little bit runny. Just then it flows off our brush nicely. And then because he's a lizard, he kind of has a striped eye. So, just gonna make a little stripe. There you go. I think that's pretty good. So now, I will do that with the other eye, and I'll come back and then we'll do the basing. Now that both eyeballs are done, we're gonna go on to basing. So honestly, you can base a guy however you want to, but I'm gonna show you real quick how I do my basing. So for my basing, I'm gonna base coat it in Ashen Gray, and then do a light dry brush of Dawnstone. So I'll come back with those updates after I've done each step. Here he is after the base coat on the base. Now onto the dry brush. And here's the finished product. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I personally am really happy with the results. This is honestly, I think, the best way to use the contrast paints. I will be making some more videos very soon here. And thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, everyone.